Hey guys, how you going? Hope you're all doing very well. This evening I'm going to be doing another movie review, so I hope you find this one interesting. This movie is a horror film from the Czech Republic, Czech language English subs, released in the year 2000, directed by Jan Švankmajer, and this film is called Little Otik. So Little Otik is about a couple that are unable to conceive a child because they're both infertile, so this depresses the wife very much. So the husband comes up with a solution. He's going to go to the backyard, take out a tree stump, and he's going to carve a vaguely what resembles a baby out of the tree stump, and he's going to hope that that can compensate for the problem. So the wife actually takes a strong connection to this tree stump, so much so that the husband starts to regret the decision because he starts to actually have concerns for her mental welfare. So he tries to get rid of the tree stump, but she won't have anything of it, so the situation is going to escalate. And that situation is escalated even further when inexplicably one day Otik, which is the name of this tree stump, comes to life. So it starts breastfeeding, it goes on to solid food, and from solid food it starts to spiral out of control because not only is Otik growing, but also the appetite is growing so much so that he can't actually be contained on food alone, so he has to start looking for food elsewhere. And as the missing persons list in this apartment complex starts to get bigger and bigger, the couple believe that Otik is behind this. So the more the people go missing, the more the police come to investigate, which threatens to destroy this newly found family. So whether or not that is the case is something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on Little Otik. When you think of Jan Švankmajer, you think of absolute craziness. You think of a surreal world that combines real-time motion with stop animation. Now, as far as stop animation is concerned, he is an absolutely brilliant filmmaker. Some really, really bizarre moments that he has in his films, and when he intertwines it with reality, it just creates a certain sense of nightmare. It's a nightmare that's not going too over the top, it's not exploiting its material, so it feels very uncomfortable, and that's something that I think Jan Švankmajer does better than anyone else. He's a brilliant filmmaker, and he's definitely a filmmaker where, for me personally, I've never done drugs, but watching a Jan Švankmajer film is the closest I'll ever come to doing them without actually taking any drugs. And so that's the type of director that this guy is. So if you're not familiar with him and you want to check him out, I'm not saying you'll enjoy it because it's very artistic horror, but as I said, a very acquired taste. But I definitely think everyone should at least experience one Jan Švankmajer film because it will change your perspective of cinema. So not only does he have absolute craziness, but the craziness is done for a very specific reason, and that reason is double meaning. So whether it's his film called Conspirators of Pleasure, which was about sexual fetishism with sexually frustrated, lonely people, or you've got Lunacy, which is a movie about mental illness and the stigma behind mental illness, but combining that with a very outrageous scenario, I always feel as though, okay, he's not trying to be different for the sake of being different, he's being different in order to tell a story in a different way. So it feels like a fairy tale. You read a fairy tale, you know that it's outrageous, but you know it's got a symbolic meaning. And so coming into Little Otik, I was expecting the same sort of experience, and that's exactly what I got. You've got all the usual craziness, you've got some really good stop animation with this tree stump when it actually comes to life, and so I thought, okay, this is everything that Jan Švankmajer is known for. It's got a very black, sinister sense of humour to it, but underneath, it's a very beautiful film about parenthood, and it's about some people who aren't able to conceive a child, and so when they get foreign sort of babies, and in this case it's a tree stump, but this tree stump could symbolise an adopted child, or another child that this woman's has to come to terms to love as their own. And so I felt that motherly connection. It was very strange because I never thought I would say I'd feel a connection between a mother and a tree stump, but that's the way the film is because this is a movie about parenthood. It is a movie, I think the movie really symbolised it perfectly at the start of the film, where you've got this outrageous scenario where a group of customers are lined up at a market store and they're actually buying babies from these vendors, and the vendors are scooping the babies out of the water with a fishing net. So it resembles selling fish. They're wrapping the babies up and they're giving them to the customers, and to me that resembled and that symbolised how some people can conceive babies very easily. And so when you've got this woman, this main character, that's looking over the balcony at this and at the sale of these babies, I could feel the inner torment that she was going through. And so if you have experienced this, or you know people who have experienced difficulty in conceiving a baby, you'll be able to relate to this character in such an outlandish world. And so that character has a lot of sympathetic qualities, and although the movie's not banking necessarily on actually sympathising for a character to actually like them, I still thought that connection in an unreal sort of world was very intriguing. And so it has a lot more realism than you'd first think, is because all this craziness actually has that double meaning that I felt as though the craziness was done for a very specific purpose. So I really like that. And then when the tree stump takes life and it starts to get out of control, this is the maternal instincts kicking in never abandoning your son. And so this woman is staying by Otik's side. Although Otik is a monster, she still saw the beauty inside Otik, and she was never going to let go. So although Otik is doing horrible things, I still thought the beautiful connection there was was something to really think about. And so it does hit you on a very realistic level, but at the same time hitting you with a lot of surreal qualities where you can enjoy what's actually going on, but because it's reined in and because it's not really exploiting its material, I felt as though the subtlety in the film really does creep under your skin and just gives you a really creative and very unique experience. There are some very, very dark tones in this film. There's a scene, there are a few scenes involving this really old character, and the really old guy is actually perving on a 12-year-old, so it's clear that he's a pedophile, but it's not exploiting it, it's not going too far, so you can actually laugh at what's going on, is because the way Jan Schwankmeyer paints this character, I couldn't help but laugh. And so although you're not condoning it, you're laughing at it, therefore you feel guilty because Jan Schwankmeyer has able to get such a black theme and a very a troubling vibe that the film has, and he's able to make fun of it. And so that's everything that a black humour should do. And so you're laughing at something, you're thinking about something, and you're also marvelling at just the craziness the film has. So it hits you on so many more levels than you would get just on a superficial film that is trying to be controversial for the sake of being controversial. There are some very good set pieces. I thought just absolute bizarre quality. There are some very sinister, violent scenes involving Otik that I thought was very reminiscent of creature feature horror films, but it's not really a movie that's trying to exploit any specific genre. It's just giving you an artistic sort of horror film that is basically a symbolic meaning of something that you can relate to in reality. So that's something I loved. I really liked the acting. I thought the acting was very good, very strange in the interactions between each other, which is something that's very trademark of Jan Schwankmeyer. And I thought the overall script was very intriguing as well. So there's so much intrigue to this film that I thought was capitalized on, and that's what gives you the unique feeling that is a Jan Schwankmeyer. So he's very acquired taste, but I think he's one of the most brilliant filmmakers going out today, and he just delivers so many memorable films. But unfortunately, although Little Otik is very memorable, it's still not a masterpiece. I believe that there are films that he's done before it that are actually a little bit better, and so this is the hit and miss aspect of Jan Schwankmeyer, is that there are some films I've really liked, and there are some films that I thought were a little bit monotonous for the simple fact they go on for a little bit too long. And unfortunately, that's what I felt with Little Otik, is that I thought that it just went about 10 to 15 minutes too long, and that if it cut 10 to 15 minutes out, the continuity and the fluency would have been a lot better. Therefore, the middle wouldn't have that monotonous tone that it has. So I felt as though some of it was a little bit of filler. And this is a criticism I have of his first film called Alice, which is a retelling of Alice in Wonderland. Very intriguing sort of development that the film had, but it was way too long. There was a strong sense of deja vu, and it really got stuck, and it became very irritating. And although Little Otik isn't as irritating as Alice, it still has that problem of being a little bit too long for its own good. So that prevents it from being a masterpiece. But putting that minor criticism aside, I would still say this is one of the most unique experiences you'll ever have. If you are a fan of cinema and you want something a little bit different, Jan Schwankmeyer is definitely directed to go out there and experience at least once. Personally, I love this director, and Little Otik is a perfect example of why. So overall, I'm going to give this film 4 stars. Go out there and see it. Alright guys, that's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later.